I'm Jeff Bond, and welcome back to the Steward Chair, where we bring business leaders insights that go beyond the balance sheet to help you build a more resilient and impactful organization. Today, I'm speaking with John Sensiba, the current managing partner, and Monique Ramirez, the incoming CEO of Sensiba, LLP, a firm that accounts for good. We are unpacking the critical importance today of long-term succession planning and the philosophy of the transient caretaker. This conversation is for every leader who wants to turn a transition of power into a non-event handoff. We'll show you how their commitment to being people first and steadfast leaders allowed for a 6-year runway to be the ultimate gift of stewardship to their firm. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please follow this podcast wherever you're listening for future content and consider sharing it with a fellow leader. Thank you, and let's dive in. John, welcome to the Steward Chair. It's such a gift to have you on today.
No, thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's jump right in. Stewardship is the way that we look at business leadership these days. For many years, I was interviewing executive leaders on the ideas of servant leadership, which we hear all the time. But really, we look at stewardship as a long-term responsibility of a leader to care for what's been entrusted to them. So that's people, mission, company, for the flourishing of others and the health of future generations, not for personal gain. And there's a lot of short-term decisions that need to be made in that long arc of time. But I really loved how you shared your definition of stewardship with me earlier. So I'd love for you to start there with our listeners.
Well, thanks, Jeff. It's always a challenge when people say, "Oh, tell me what you told me before." And I think, what did I tell them before? Hopefully I'm consistent in my answer. We are transient in leadership roles in organizations, except for maybe a CEO and founder that was with the organization for a long time. But even then, that eventually somebody has to take your role. Most of us have taken the role from somebody else, so we are the beneficiaries of everything that they did and everything that their leadership brought to us to be able to take that leadership role and take care of it. And understand that we're transient and that the organization is something that we are a temporary caretaker for the benefit of the people that we work with and the communities that we serve. And I think part of that obligation is to make sure that the successor, the next leader, and we'll talk a little bit about my succession here in a few minutes, but it's particularly top of mind for me right now that they understand that I understand my role. I understand that I was a transient caretaker, even though it was almost 20 years in the role. It's okay and it's appropriate and it's expected and it's necessary for the next leader to change things. And it shows no disrespect to me. It doesn't dishonor the things that I did, but it builds on them, and that's the expected thing. Sometimes when people take over the caretaker role, they feel like they're going to hurt somebody's feelings, or maybe it's disrespectful to the previous leader. And I just want to make sure that my successor knows that no, it's expected. You'll do it differently and better than me, and I'll be real disappointed if you don't. So, it really is an honor to be entrusted with the role, but it's a fool's errand to think that it's more than that.
I love the words transient, beneficiary, caretaker. Those are such great ways to look at stewardship. And you were the beneficiary during the Great Recession. So lucky you, 2008, you got to take on the role of CEO. What an opportune time, if there ever was one. So I'd love to learn what that moment was like for you, and how did it shape your early leadership philosophy and just perspectives in that time?
Well, I wouldn't have known it in the moment. But it was foundational to my development as a leader. I needed a lot of development. We went through, as an organization, the 2008 Great Recession in a period of crisis for the organization, as well as crisis for the world, an economic crisis anyway, which led to humanitarian crisis. We didn't have strong values. We were a little bit at sea as an organization in terms of our purpose, our values, the things that we really stood for. So that made it infinitely more difficult to deal with a crisis when you don't have a solid mooring, a foundation to be able to make decisions. It makes it very difficult. And in retrospect, I hear, the advice from other people that never let a good crisis go to waste. This is a great time to start a business if there's opportunity and change. Hopefully not opportunistic to the disadvantage of others, but there's opportunity. And without really having an intention, we took advantage of that opportunity to say that we don't ever want to have this happen again. There's going to be challenges in business, and we need to have really clearly defined values. We changed just about everything about the firm at that point in time, and it was easy to do because there was so much uncertainty. People were looking for that vision, that purpose, that leadership. So my partners and I decided that we were going to be and more deliberate about our values. And I'll contrast that experience that seemed, interminable and miserable, going through that without strong values, to the 2020 when, we had another threat, an economic threat, in addition to a health threat. And those predictions of a 40% drop in GDP. I looked at what our peers were doing, many of whom were immediately reducing staff, making pretty drastic changes, anticipating potential 40% drop in GDP. And I had a bad night. I'll tell you, I had a little PTSD from 2008, but then that was it. And then I thought, well, what are our priorities? What are our values? And how are we going to live those out during this time of crisis? And my partners completely, supported that. The values are ours, not mine. And we acted accordingly. We were very transparent with people. And we were at peace with trusting ourselves to do the next right thing, not to overreact, and to constantly ask ourselves, are we being consistent with our values? And if I was an employee and not an owner, what would I want to know? How would I want to be treated during this time of crisis? And I think I might have shared with you before, Jeff, that a friend of mine had a tagline on their email during the 2008 economic crisis that said, values are not something that you abandon and they become inconvenient. And I've always appreciated that. And it really, the contrast to those two really major threats to the business, because that's what my role is, threats to the community and to the world and to people's health as well. And the second one, but my role was to take care of the business in the context of the macro environment. The contrast between those two, a situation where there weren't strong values and priorities as an organization versus a later challenge when there really were, it's just amazing. So for organizations that maybe haven't really solidified their values because they didn't have to, they haven't maybe been through something like that, although everybody went through 2020. So anybody who's over 5 years old has been through it. I really encourage them to revisit them, and then to visit them with every single major decision that they make as an organization, because it makes that, I'm fairly lazy when it comes to those kind of things. I don't want to have to, spend sleepless nights. I want to be able to make decisions quickly based on very clear and simple values. And as an organization, we benefited from that.
I love that story, and I love how you shared the thought of never let a good crisis go to waste, and that one sleepless night, because I think we've all been there. If you own a business, if you're the chief steward of anything where people are depending on you, you have that night of like sheer panic and anxiety, and you wake up in a cold sweat, you can't go back to sleep. Gosh, I've definitely had those. And so, like, as you look back now in that moment, if you were to like calm your heart and speak to the younger version of yourself that was entering into this leadership role, what would be the words that you share in that time, like kind of giving some look into the future of that it would all be okay?
Well, I'd remind myself of the important things in life, that, my personal health, the health of my family, the health of the people that I work with, and trust that we would do, like I said, the next right thing. Just have faith in that, and believe that whatever comes up, we don't know what's going to happen, but belief that I and the organization are going to do the right thing. And that's it. What happens after that, you really can't control it. And they say but people say, or I've heard, that sin is one of the greatest, or worry is one of the greatest sins you can commit, because it means you don't have faith. And I do have faith, and I have faith in the people that I work with, and I have faith that even if I go broke while doing the right thing and being who I want to be as a human being, then that's okay. And it's actually desirable. So you worry about money and you worry about all those things, and it's just a waste of time, because if you just do the right thing, everything else takes care of itself. So as a young leader, I wish I had known that, and I wish I had faith in that things were going to be okay if we just do the right thing. And that probably would have saved me a lot of heartache in 2008.
Well, and for our community of leaders today that are stewarding their organizations that they either founded or inherited as a benefactor, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of macroeconomic concerns, and 2025, as we're recording this together, what kinds of conversations are you having with your peer circles and other executive leaders today, given like where we're at and what you've learned?
Our industry, the CPA profession, is at a particularly interesting point in our evolution, where we're being disrupted by technology. The low value clerical work that I got paid a lot of money to do for most of my career, nobody wants to do it and nobody wants to pay for it. So it takes capital to make those changes and those investments. And private equity has come into our space in a pretty big way. I met with, I think we're number 75 on somebody's list in terms of size of CPA firms in the country. And I spoke to a friend who's top 25. He's managing partner of a very large CPA professional services firm. And we had dinner, and he said, I don't think I need private equity, but there's a bunch of really smart people who are taking this. What am I missing? And I have a point of view, so I shared it with him. But really, it is in times of disruption and uncertainty, and maybe a fear of missing out, the FOMO that some people have. Just continue to follow your values, continue to try and add value and help other people, because that's why whether you're a CPA or an emergency room physician or a priest or a rabbi or some kind of spiritual leader, you're put on earth to help other people with the gifts that you've been given. Continue to help people, figure out better ways to help them using technology or whatever it is that you can use, because you're obligated to do that. You should try and help the best that you can. Continue to try to help people. Continue to believe that as long as you do the right thing, eventually things will work out. And don't spend too much time stressing about things that you can't control, because that time could be better spent in positive reinforcement with your teams. If a leader's afraid, if a leader's scared, boy, that doesn't say good things about the organization, because people follow the leader.
It doesn't. And we have our moments of weakness. We have our sleepless nights. But as long as we can come back to that center of gravity of trusting in our values, and I think the simple takeaway here for our audience is just the priorities and the clear values is a great North Star, and just being able to follow that. And in a previous conversation, you had described a personal metric for your leadership, which was asking yourself if you'd be proud of the culture if your parents or children walked into the building. Tell me about how that came about as a metric for your own success or your own kind of self-evaluation, and how has that simple idea driven your decision framework as a leader?
No, thanks, Jeff, for reminding me of that. But yeah, when I was young, I was in an organization right out of college that wasn't consistent with who I wanted to be as a professional or as a person. And it was a pretty rough environment. And if my parents had walked in and seen the way that people treated each other, especially leaders, I would have been embarrassed. And it occurred to me that maybe I wanted to be part of an organization where if my parents walked in at any point in time and saw any interaction, saw the way that we treated each other, saw the way that we treated our clients, or the way that we behaved in the community, that I'd be proud of that. And so that was my measuring stick. My parents are long gone. My children are older than many of the people I work with now. And so that became my metric. And, wasn't important to change that. Just because my parents are gone doesn't mean that I don't think about them. And I don't want them to be proud of, the way that I conduct myself. But my children are in the workforce, so that makes it more real for me in today's world. And if they walked in, would they be proud of what their father does, the way that he interacts with people, and the way that the people he works with treat each other and interact? So it's it's been a kind of a moral compass for me, a true north to think about that in every interaction. I'll tell you that, but that goes two ways. We provide services to people, and sometimes they don't pay us. But that's just the way that the world works. Sometimes for good reasons. Maybe our service wasn't good, or there was a miscommunication. But I always had a picture of my children across from me, sitting at my desk. And when I talk to somebody about, why haven't you paid me? Did I not do a good job? Or, tell me what the expectation gap was. I always think the time I spent serving you, I could have spent with my children. And now you're telling me that was worthless time, and that hurts me deeply. So that was always a good motivation for me to talk to people and say, I don't want to spend time away from my kids that isn't rewarding and helping the organization move forward. So tell me what I did that, that caused this. Always brought it very personal to me.
Well, it's very resonant with me as a father of three and pretty much a career-long professional services provider. And I know how deeply important our time is. It's what we get compensated for. We get compensated for our minds and for our time. And so we want to be able to create value in the world, but most importantly, be chief stewards at home. And I can assure you from what I'm hearing that with that heart posture, your kids are very proud of you, whether you've heard it recently or not.
Thanks. Yeah, I hope so. I hope they, and when they're not, I hope they know that it's not because I'm not trying to be a better person every day, because that's what gets me out of bed.
Yes. Well, I hope they listen to this. You spent more than 2 decades, John, at Sensiba, and it's kind of a rarity in this world to see CEOs steward a company for so long. You see such high turnover in the role. It's really a testament, I think, to your commitment to the company. And I'd love to just hear what's kept you in the same organization for so long, and how has that influenced your leadership journey of being in it for the long term and building an enduring business?
I think I made the job so unattractive, Jeff, that nobody else wanted it. I guess an optimist would say that I had so much room to improve, what an opportunity to improve as a leader. And a pessimist would probably say, good Lord, it took you 20 years to finally become a decent leader, and your partners were patient with you. But I guess
the truth is somewhere in the middle of that, right?
Yeah, well, probably closer to the second one. But I think what's kept me in the role is just love of the people I work with and what I do, and the blessing it's been for me to have this opportunity, and the knowledge that you get better every day. And I want to get better, and I want to do better things, and I want to have a clearer vision, and I want to be able to communicate that vision in a more meaningful way so that people really find meaning and purpose in their work. We spend so much time doing the things that we do so that we can live in this society and pay for our homes and clothe our children and send them to school and all the things that we do in this society, that if you don't really find meaning in your work, which is the majority of your adult life, what a tragedy that is. So I try and get better at that every day. And I absolutely love what I do. If I hadn't 5.5 years ago told my partners that I was done in 6 years in this role, I probably would never leave, because I love it that much. So I have no regrets that I'm taking this step back next year, and that Monique, who we might chat with later, is taking my role. I know that if I hadn't done that, then I would never leave, because I just love it so much. And I think I'm the luckiest person in the world to have the job that I have. It just shocks me when I find out that other people don't want the job. But it's not for everybody. And that's why there's, I guess, every organization has one leader, because not everybody wants that role. But I've been very blessed that my partners have had the patience and the faith in me to keep me in this role as long, because every 3 years they have a decision to make about who they want to be in this job. And lucky for me, 6 times they let me not be the one that gets to lead the organization.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it isn't for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart, because there are a lot of challenging things. We do get bloodied along the way, as past guests have talked about, with their boards and with the ebbs and flows of the marketplace, and, client losses and conflict and things like that. So how do you work on helping your team connect not only to your values, but from that way of thinking in their own unique ways, that we're building something that has a longer term purpose and meaning to it? And what are some of the challenges with communicating that through the organization so that it really sticks with every individual in their own unique ways?
Well, I mentioned earlier, Jeff, that I'm fairly simple. That's why I like simple values and priorities. And because they are so simple, we incorporate them in everything that we do. Yesterday, we had our monthly town hall, which I think is pretty common in corporate America, at least since the pandemic, that people want to communicate and connect. And because we're so much better with virtual tools now, it's easier to do that without having to spend $500,000 to bring everybody to one location to do it. So we had our town hall yesterday, and one way or another, questions come up, and you can bring them back to your values. Where are our priorities? Our priorities are family, community, and firm, in that order. So there were people that were not able to come to our big celebration last month, where we did bring everybody from around the world to be together. And it's because they had family commitments. And we celebrate that, as opposed to, maybe making people feel less than for having missed out on the event. When somebody says that I'm worried that I can't do something, I've got to do this, we simply say, are you following, our priorities of family, community, firm? Yes, you are. Well, we celebrate the fact that you're not going to be there, even though we'd love to have you. And our expectations for people are also very simple. We ask people to communicate, meet their commitments, and be kind. And so a question will come up: what are the expected working hours during our busiest time of the year? CPA firms have busy seasons, and the answer is, we expect you to communicate, meet your commitments, and be kind. If you can do that in 10 hours a week, I want you to show me how. And if it takes you longer than that, you need help, let me know. But you make the decision. Communicate, meet your commitments. There's lots of commitments, so it's going to take some time. And be kind. And if you don't want to work on Wednesdays because you're working in your kid's school, then don't work on Wednesdays. Just make sure that you've communicated that, so people know that you won't be available. Our profession has had a lot of legacy things. Like, we always work Saturdays between January and April. No, we don't. Communicate, meet your commitments, be kind. So those simple things come into every decision and every conversation that we have. And they're not my values; they're our values collectively as a firm. But I get the opportunity to communicate them probably more frequently than anybody else, just because of my role, and just really it's just the fabric of who we are. I'd be shocked at even the people that have joined us within the last 45 days. There have been like 60 people, because we did an acquisition. I'd be shocked if you asked one of those people who haven't been with us very long what our priorities are, if they couldn't tell you that family, community, firm are our priorities, and our expectations for success are to communicate, meet your commitments, and be kind. I'd be shocked if they couldn't tell you that.
Those frameworks for priorities and expectations are so powerful. And I also love the word you use, that we celebrate the fact that you prioritized appropriately. So we celebrate the fact that you couldn't be at this important team gathering that everybody would love to be at, and how connection is so deeply important in your organization, but also the fact that, like, abandoning family for that connection within the company, it comes at an expense as well. And just the simplicity of that, John, I don't know how much you've reflected on that. I mean, you're a simple person, you said, and I love that. But we make our values and our priorities and our mission, vision, purpose statements so complicated sometimes. And the fact that you can boil that down into 3 words as a framework like that, I think is just so incredible. And I'm sure that's really resonant with your team, especially in a results only focused professional services environment that typically over the long arc of time is known for working 80-hour work weeks and all of that. So
Right.
Have you ever had someone within your organization tell you, like, they've come from the Big Four, or they've kind of left that kind of environment and what they see as to be different in your organization? What does that mean to you?
It's heartening to not to hear people say that we're better than or anything else, but it's heartening to have people say that how much they appreciate it. That's nice confirmation, and we're not for everybody. I had a question yesterday I mentioned the town hall. I had a question yesterday that came up in the town hall. It said, I'm considering recruiting some of my friends from the Big Four. Can you tell us, why Sensiba, which is the name of the firm, is a better choice? And I said, well, I couldn't say that it's a better choice. It's a better choice for me, personally, and I think most of the people here have decided that this is the culture that they want to be in, but it depends on what you want to do with your career, what your values are. So I think we're a great choice, but I hesitate to ever say that we're better than another organization that I'm not part of. It's better for me to be in an organization that values family and community above the firm. It's better for me to have simple priorities that I think give professionals the freedom to do whatever they want, to prioritize their families and their communities, but to meet their commitments and to communicate that, and to be a good person at work. So I don't know that we're better. And I've had people come from other organizations and say, "Oh my gosh, it took me a year to believe that Sensiba really was what they sold me when you guys hired me." But it really is, and it's the best place I've ever worked. That of course makes you feel really good because I work here too. I want to work in a great place. But yeah, that question yesterday, one of my partners objected to my response, saying, "No, we are better, but better for us for sure." So I do get that confirmation from people, but would always hesitate to contrast us.
Well, I love that you're fighting for your culture. And the other part that I really like is that you meet with your team monthly and you make this town hall commitment. One of our largest clients over the last several years, we support their monthly all hands. And it is such a unique opportunity for connection within a company that drives performance, that drives everyone's sense of connectedness to one another, as well as the mission, particularly if you're in the office or even distributed in different offices. So how has that been, that intentional focus on a monthly? Because it's a big time commitment to plan for these things, right? So why do you do it, and how has that been significant for your firm?
Well, we do it because if I was not in a leadership role, I'd want to have regular communication from leadership, especially during uncertain times. Those touch points are just so important. The time that goes into it is largely our marketing group's time. They put together the presentations, they put together the deck, they get the questions in the right format so that we can respond to them. But it's an optional thing. Some people say, "Oh gosh, once a month is too often." Some people say it's not often enough. But the people who say it's too often, then I share, well, when I get on the screen and I'm the only one on, I'll understand that there's no value in it. But when you have close to 300 people every month who tune in, you think, okay, there must be some value here because they don't have to, and we don't take attendance, and I can't possibly see 300 people, who's participating or who's not participating. So I think it's connected people. It's following the golden rule, which we do in our firm: treat people the way they'd like to be treated. If I wasn't inside the room where vision and purpose and decisions are being made, policies are being made, then I'd want to hear from those people pretty frequently. So we try and treat people the way we'd like to be treated. I think it's helped keep our culture. I think the other reason why it's so important for us, Jeff, is that we are a remote first organization. I'm sitting in our offices in San Ramon, California right now, and I can see Monique, who's joined us, is sitting in her bedroom in Morgan Hill, California right now. Most of our people aren't in the office. We're distributed over 40 plus states in the US and 7 or 8 countries internationally, including Panama and Australia and European countries. So we don't get together. We don't have that casual interaction where culture and connection can happen. So that monthly meeting is super important. And if you miss one, it's 60 days in between. So doing it like quarterly, if you missed one, it's 6 months in between, that would just be too much, I think, too much of a gap for us.
I couldn't agree more. And welcome, Monique, to the studio. I think this is such a wonderful moment to hone in on this planned succession that you so intentionally created with Monique, and the process of setting her up for a successful transition in itself. But Monique, as you think to the culture here that John is speaking to, and what it means to be a distributed team, how in your mind has your experience been unique there, and what has this planned succession meant to you?
Wow, there's so much there. Thanks for having me. I just first have to say it's such a privilege to be able to step into a role like this with this planned succession in mind. It's been a journey, and we've been a leadership team kind of leading together for several years because this was so intentional on John's part. He formed executive leadership group, and we were navigating cultural adjustments and, deploying these town halls and all the things we needed to do through COVID and a number of other things. So it feels natural in a lot of ways because he brought in a very deliberate group to lead together and move this forward. So it's liberating to step into a position like this with the runway that we have, and that John is still here. It's such a privilege to be able to step into the next position with that person next to you. And it's not just liberating for me moving into that role, but it's really instilled a growth mindset and an opportunity for support throughout the whole organization. So the person stepping into my existing leadership position is also feeling very supported through this runway, and we're kind of doing this smooth transition across the whole organization. And then the people under him that are really stepping in to help him alleviate his client load right now and what he's got to do to navigate this next position. So it really has instilled that growth and opportunities for every single person in the organization down. And it can be very jarring when somebody like John is stepping away from his seat after running the firm for so long, and he is our figurehead. And so this hopefully is creating that sense of stability and peace with everybody, that we're still moving in the right direction. I would say we're going to be hitting the ground running, but really the truth is we're not going to even hit the ground. We've got this momentum, we're moving. And I think that's really unique. And it's a tremendous opportunity to be able to continue into this culture that John has built, the foundation of what we have. And I'm excited to be able to keep growing that. And he's being able to make his mark on all of that into the future, not just from the foundation that he created.
Well, I'm super excited for you. And it's such a beautiful reflection and illustration of a succession plan done so intentionally well. And it's not like this just came up this year. There was a 6-year notice that John gave and a multi-year process that led to you accepting the role. John, discuss the importance of a non-event handoff, as you said to me, and how it can be a gift to the organization so that they're not hitting the ground, like Monique said.
I guess I'll go back to the golden rule. You treat people the way you'd like to be treated. And if I was in the organization, I'd want to have a lot of visibility about something as significant as this. Significant as this. If I got hit by a truck today, I think people would be sad for a couple of days, but they'd be successful. And the business would continue. So I don't want to over-index the importance, but it is important to our little organization. And if I was in the organization, I'd want as much notice and the reasoning behind it and time to adjust and visibility so that it wasn't sprung on me. I didn't feel like I was surprised by this, and then it seems like it's as Monique said, it could be jarring to have this change, especially when somebody's name is on the organization. The majority of the 450 or 500 people that we have here now. Maybe not the majority, maybe at least a half of them. I've never known another managing partner. This is it. And so, what does that mean when that person leaves? Well, if they leave without much notice because of, I guess, a poor decision, it's the only reason you leave without much notice, or maybe a health scare or something like that, it can be super jarring. But if you give people more runway, they've known now for almost a year, not only that I'm transitioning, but that Monique is my replacement. The partners confirmed that the firm has known about it. They had a chance to get to know Monique through a series of interactions. Monique will host probably at least half the town halls this year. She's done a series of videos called Get to Know Mo. I think it's treating people the way we'd like to be treated. And I think it's super helpful. I hope it is. It's the way that I would love to have come into the role. I didn't, unfortunately, but you always want to try and do things better than you've done in the past. So, maybe there's a better way to do it than what we're doing it, but I'm pretty happy. I always say that men plan and God laughs, but I'm knocking on wood because this plan is going exactly as we had hoped, and I'm super excited to see Monique take the role on that organization to heights that we haven't seen before.
Well, I love that you gave a 6-year notice and the non-event handoff. It can be so jarring, and a lot of leaders who are still around but feeling burnt out typically hand it off, and they're just kind of exiting from that place of burnout and not really setting up their next leader for success. And Monique, what you said earlier about your current role being succeeded and how you're setting up that next leader for success was so beautiful. What has that process been like for you, and how are you planning for the future non-event of stewarding this business and looking at the long view of what the organization will be like?
Yeah, there's so much about this transition that is being very deliberate and taking a step back from the day-to-day that kind of sucks you in all the time, right? Just the existing client responsibilities, the teams that I'm managing right now. But it's really been helpful to think every single day about, what am I doing today that will not be there tomorrow? What are the things I need to pass on to somebody else? What are the things that I need to deliberately train somebody else to be able to do in my stead? So it's really something that is iterative over time. It keeps growing. It's moving along, and the days are shifting slowly. It's really nice and comfortable to just go into your own space every time and say, this is what I do, and that's fine. But it's really challenging that growth every day to move into the next position. And it's been helpful to have certain standing sessions with John, for example, or with Evan, my successor, and that those are things that we can both collaborate together on. What should this next phase look like? And the firm is growing just as fast as I'm growing, if not faster. And so that really has been helpful in making sure that we're planning longer term into the future, so that, as you said, when I'm in that position next May, I don't know exactly what the firm will look like. We're planning, as John said, we're planning. We hope that it's we're going to deploy our strategic plans and that we'll get there, but things will change. But being able to set up a team under me and the team around me that will really support and be deliberate about filling in some of the gaps that I have, or things that I know that we're going to be moving forward into, that really is the privilege that this succession plan is allowing for. And so going into this next phase, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's next, but I know that we've got really bright people, really smart, driven, kind people that I'm excited to keep building with. And that's really what's making this fun. And so on the other side of this pretty challenging transition, because I keep thinking every day I'm wearing 3 or 4 different hats, trying to navigate out of one and put on the other one. Those things will continue to evolve, but really at the end of it, I think that's going to be helpful to just have that clarity of vision. And that's the end game, is that when in May, that there's going to be a little bit more clarity. I will be wearing one hat and really been able to be excited with the teams that are around me to keep moving.
Well, you're going to be an incredible chief steward, I can already tell. And we talked about the transient nature of leadership and inheriting these roles. And John inherited it back in the Great Recession, lucky him. And he's built it to what it is today. And you have this wonderful opportunity to move it forward. I'd love to just close with the words that you would share with Monique, John, to kind of encourage and bless her in her future leadership journey. As maybe a way to end this, because I think your words over her matter so much now, and this responsibility is so significant that I know it's going to mean a lot.
Well, and Monique already knows this, but I've known for 10 years that she had this capability, and we talked about the gifts that she's been given. I mentioned that earlier, Jeff, but I think people on earth are obligated to use the gifts that God has given them to serve others. And she's been given these gifts, these leadership gifts. And she'll continue to be herself. She'll love the people that she serves, and she'll continue to be her authentic self. And it doesn't take any more than that for her to be wildly successful.
See, you are a simple man with great words to share. So simple and really wonderful words. I'm glad we had a chance to speak with you, John, and I'm glad we had a chance to get to know Mo. I love that phrase. So thank you both for coming on the Steward Chair.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Wow. My sincere thanks to John and Monique for joining us today. I really felt their insights on creating a liberating and planned succession were a testament to the power of a people-first culture. And now here is your steward's call. This is the one key moment I think you can take from our conversation and put into practice today. So succession is not a one-year event. It's a multi-year mandate. Begin today building a clear, supportive, and long-term runway for your successor now. Your job is never to find a clone, but to empower a leader, like John said, who's expected to lead differently and better than you. Remember, building a legacy is not a future event. It's a daily practice. So what you do today to prepare your organization for the day that you step away will shape the endurance of your mission long after you are gone. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to follow the Steward Chair wherever you get your podcasts. It really is the best way to ensure you'll never miss an episode. And to help us grow this community, please share this episode with a leader you respect. A final thank you to our incredible team, executive producers Quentin Thomas and Thomas Mastro-Totero, and our managing editor, Daniel Mastro-Totero. As always, are the true stewards behind this show, and I'm your host and researcher, Jeff Bond. And now, with that, go and be a leader worth following.